I'll tell you what, doing radio shows for an actor it's completely different. You have to rely on your voice. You have to transmit the emotions that you would see in somebody's face through the actual microphone, which is hard for some people to do.
This is Beaver County filmmaker Christopher
Writer
Patchett.
Daniel Rossi
Kelly
King.
Powell, managing director.
This is Beaver County artist Marlon
This is
Gist.
Beaver County filmmaker Joseph
Photographer
Cheney.
Aaron
Podcast
Nienhauser.
producer Kevin
This
Farkas.
is Pamela Rossi Keene, the director of the Genesis Collective, and you're listening to the Genesis Collective podcast.
The Genesis Collective, supporting local artists and their work, making art more accessible, and putting art back into our communities. I'm Kevin Farkas, one of the hosts of the podcast. On this episode, we talk with Dave Holoweiko, Shanthi Bianco, Larry Spinnenwebber, Kevin McGuire, Eric J. MacAnallen, and Carey Lynn Hutch about RAC Theater Productions' long-running annual holiday radio show produced right here in Beaver County for more than a quarter century.
We have been doing radio theater for over 20 years, right? And RACT has been in Rochester and Beaver County for 27 years now. So we've been doing radio theater for most of our existence. And every year we do one charity radio show at the end of the year for the holidays. And it's typically either a traditional holiday feeling piece or something that people will recognize.
I came in 2 years after RACT was founded.
I've been doing theater since, I guess, the late 80s, early 90s, but then I had a 20-year hiatus. I've been in Beaver County for a couple of years now, and I've been in 2 of the radio shows, and I just love it. I love it. I love that venue. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, actually, I was a member of RACT for many years and did 2 radio shows. But for an actor, I'll tell you what, it's completely different. Because you can't see the actor and you have to rely on your voice, you have to transmit the emotions that you would see in somebody's face through the actual microphone, which is hard for some people to do.
Well, the 1940s has sort of become the era because when we're looking for radio scripts, that was the heyday of the radio dramas. And the scripts we're finding were written and performed in the 40s. So it's not a conscious, let's narrow in on the 40s. It's because that's where all the scripts were from.
Larry's right. If you go to most of the sites that have the actual scripts from radio shows, they're from the 30s, 40s, and some from the 50s, but very few. Most of your 50s radio shows, or surprisingly enough, were science fiction. There was a lot of science fiction radio shows in the 50s.
Section 2, close in. This is your target vehicle.
Any of the Lux Presents scripts that we've done, we haven't changed the dialogue. We've left them as they were written in the 40s.
Yeah, we introduce our audience to go back to the bygone era and just be prepared for 1940s on the radio.
Well, I think it adds to the magic of the moment to hear things that we don't normally hear in modern speech.
What's that? Oh, yes. Merry Christmas to you, too. Excuse me, I'd like to, Vinny in here, if that's all right with you. I can't talk the ruddy language.
It is not necessary to speak the ruddy language, monsieur, since I speak yours after a fashion.
Oh, the station master said you wouldn't mind if
2014 is when I got involved with RACT. That was actually my first show with RACT, was A Child is Born, and it was, three men. Mm-hmm. I played a child.
Yeah.
I played a child too.
Yeah. I mean, you listen to me talk, and I've got this deep baritone voice, and I had to play a prepubescent thief in one of the shows. Yeah.
Who speaks there? Who are you?
Who? Oh, my name is Dismas. I'm a thief. You know, the starved, flea-bitten sort of boy who haunts dark alleyways in any town, sleeps on a fruit sack, runs from the police, begs what he can, and borrows what he must. That's me.
When I was a member, I was in Miracle on 34th Street, and I played 7 different characters. Some of them only had a line or 2, but my wife was in the audience, and she actually looked around and could not figure out who was talking, and it was me, because I actually did 7 different voices for those characters. So that's one of the things about radio shows, too. You can play multiple characters.
Well, you throw into that the fact that we're doing it live in front of an audience. So not only are you changing your voice, but the audience is watching you do it. which adds, again, another level of magic to it, because they can actually see the actor's process in switching from one voice to another, sometimes on the same page. That is so fascinating as an audience member to be able to sit and watch that sort of thing. And I think doing it in front of a live audience really does. You can listen to it, sure, like as a podcast or online or whatever, but it's not quite the same as watching the actors do it.
That's what I love about it, the fact that you can change your voice. I love doing that.
How now? What do you want with me? Who are you?
Ask me who I was.
Who were you?
In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley.
There's more of gravy than grave about you, whatever you are.
You believe in me now?
I do.
You must believe. You must believe.
It's gone. Oh, I made it! 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 Take a moment to hear from our wonderful sponsors. Our Act Theater Productions would like to thank the folks at the Social Voice Project for supplying the audio support for this holiday production. Every week, the fine audio technicians at the Social Voice Project...
What is the challenge to turn a normal script into a radio show?
I think the biggest challenge for me is that a lot of my humor tends to be visual. I like vaudevillian slapstick and ridiculous situations that are based on visual cues. And you can't do that real well over radio. You've got to deliver the punchline entirely with dialogue. Sometimes you could look at a script and go, this script is hilarious. I can't do this as a radio show because the audience, unless I have a narrator go, and then he slipped and fell, which kind of
defeats the purpose.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, yeah, I know they used to do that. They'd have a narrator, would fill in some of the action, but I find that when you do that, it's not nearly as interesting as being able to do it with dialogue.
I'm regularly not a performer, so having a script, really helps me. It's my little security blanket. And I think that's why a lot of people come and audition for the radio shows, because there's less pressure from memorizing lines that really, attracts me to the radio show.
I love the fact that we can just read radio shows.
Foley work is your sound effects. You're doing live sound effects. Yes, a lot of physical comedy can't be done on radio. Certain bits, however, you can do if you go into the sound effects. And I'm thinking of the old comedy series Fibber, McGee, and Molly, where they had a running gag, and you didn't even have to see it. You just knew when he mentions the closet, and then you hear the sound effect that he's opened this avalanche of junk out of the closet.
Oh, where's my check? Oh, I remember. Where is it? Right here in the hall closet. Got to straighten out that closet one of these days.
The first audition that I came to, which was for A Child is Born and Three Men, I was only interested in helping out with the live sound effects. So that's what I came into the auditions with, the intention of meeting the director and introducing myself and offering my assistance there. I ended up getting cast in one of the two plays, and so I was able to do the sound effects for the other play. So during the Three Men, they're on board a train. There's a lot of noise going on. So we had to really figure out the best way to make train sound, which, by the way, is sandpaper on wooden blocks. And then also there's luggage sound, where they have to set their bags up on the luggage racks, or the compartment door opening and closing. And so we wanted to do as much live sound effects as possible in that production. And so you really have to just bang pans together and cling this metal to this wood and try and see which sounds the most like the sound you're trying to get. And then fit it all on one table in the side of the room and perform those effects live.
And make sure that those sounds sound realistic on a recording, because sometimes the recording changes what it sounds like live.
My absolute favorite sound effect was during the Shop Around the Corner. There is actually two scenes where a body has to hit the floor. One where the woman faints and she's caught, but there's still a bit of a thud. And the other where the man punches the other man and knocks him out. So creating this sound effect required me to build essentially a half a body dummy so that I could have the noise of a body hitting the floor. And then we had to time it perfectly with somebody punching a rubber ball so it sounded like a good punch to the face and a hit to the floor. But timing that and getting that just right was so difficult. But the audience every night would laugh and kind of ruin the sound cue because they just found the visual of me dropping a half body dummy to the floor so funny.
Some of the stuff we use to make sound effects on radio shows are just weird. I mean, it really is. I mean, you look at it and you say, well, that doesn't look like it would do any, and then you listen to it and without the visual and say, wow, that does sound exactly like, and I think what happened is we've lost that art.
Oh, yeah. When you're doing that live, you got one chance at it, and if you screw it up, you screwed it up. You can't go, oh, hold on, we're gonna go back and redo that body falling on the floor because that didn't sound right. You can't do that in a live show. Yeah.
One of the things that I strive for when we start to produce a show is to just try and, obviously it's to include as many people as possible. We want as many volunteers and people who are interested in trying out theater to come to auditions. So we want to make sure there's positions for them. So if we have 5 people on the Foley table, we have 5 people on the Foley table. But it creates that real human quality of radio theater rather than being just a recording from a movie or essentially incredibly edited audio. It is live, and you do have the mistakes, you do have the audience laughter, and I think it just makes you visualize it a little bit better because you can hear the shoe squeaks on the floor and you can hear the sneezes, and you realize it's real people there.
People watch how you make the sound effects. I mean, just like Shanthi said, people laugh because she dropped half a body. Well, I mean, in the last show, I helped run sound for us, and our act had actual tire chains up there for the ghosts and things. I mean, these people are working with everyday things to make sound. And to the average person in the audience, they're saying, well, what's he doing with a tire chain? Until they hear it, and then they say, oh, now it makes sense.
For a while in the mid to late 30s, it was a tradition, and I don't know what radio company or what station did it, but it was a tradition that every Christmas Eve they would do a live half-hour adaptation of A Christmas Carol with Lionel Barrymore as Scrooge. And that was a yearly tradition until his health interfered with that. He had arthritis very badly, and that kind of interfered with his performing regularly, which is why your trivia for the day, Mr. Potter in It's a Wonderful Life is in a wheelchair.
Look at you. You used to be so cocky. You were going to go out and conquer the world. You once called me a warped, frustrated old man.
I was here for the first radio show. We wanted to do a Christmas production. It's a Wonderful Life came up as the show we wanted to do, but physically, sets, costumes, a performance venue, all of that was a little much, and someone got the idea, well, it was done as a radio adaptation, let's do that. From the beginning, we have done it as a charity production, that any profit we make, and most of what we bring at the door is profit because we have very little, if any, expenditures on the show, and we've always given that back. Throughout the year, the community supports us and our productions. This is our chance to give back to the community. And each year, by tradition, the director chooses what organization he or she would like to donate the proceeds to.
The year I started directing the show, I picked Toys for Tots. As long as I've been associated with our act, we've always picked great organizations in the Valley. We try to keep all the money in the Valley.
Previous years, we've given to Meals on Wheels, the Mental Health Association,
Beaver County Cancer Association,
Beaver County Humane Society,
Beaver County Library.
So it's always been a really good part of the production is that we know that we're not making this money for us. We're not selling these tickets for us. They're going to a charitable organization. And like Larry said, it's a really great opportunity for us to give back. We're often told that this is people's annual holiday tradition. It kicks off their Christmas season to come to this show. And while, yes, it's a week after the Black Friday sales, this is really what starts it for them in their hearts and minds.
For the New Brighton Historical Society, they will buy a block of tickets, and that is their holiday party to come see our production and hang out at the reception afterwards. So that's become their tradition to come see the show.
Well, for our act, Theater Productions, Radio Theater, we hold auditions annually, typically right around Halloween. We take people from any level of experience. That's actually a big part of what our act is. As a community theater organization, we want anybody with any inkling to participate in community theater to come and show up at one of our auditions or one of our meetings and volunteer in any capacity they're interested in. Even if you just want to work the door and take people's money at the box office, that's still a great opportunity for you to come and get involved.
So I'll tell you how I got involved in our act. I hadn't done theater since high school, which had been almost 35 years before. I always maintained an interest and really wanted to do theater. And I got a call from Amy Van Winkle, who is a member of our act and who used to be president. And at the time, our act was in a really low point in their history and only had about 5 active members. So they were doing a radio show. They needed to cast about 12 or something, and they had like 5. So Amy called me and said, hey, would you be interested in coming to do... Oh, I hadn't done theater, like I said, in 30 years. So I'm thinking, radio show, all I have to do is read. Well, that's no problem. And again, I played 3 or 4 characters in that show, which I hadn't acted in years. And it re-sparked my interest. And I will tell you, there are a lot of people that have gotten involved in radio shows, and they end up doing regular shows like I did.
Yeah, that's how I found out about our act too, was online, and then auditioned for the I'll Be Seeing You show, and I just fell in love with that. I mean, I was a DJ years ago for a small station in Lawrence County. That love of radio, it was sparked then, and to have an opportunity, to move to Beaver County and suddenly have this kind of opportunity, not only the acting, but the radio show, it's just fantastic to me. I mean, I'm in love with it.
This group of people, and I've been involved in them one way or another for many years, our act is the most welcoming group. If you come and you want a part in the radio show, or they think you're capable of doing a part in a normal show, they're going to cast you.
That's something that I'm really proud of. I'm proud that people like Kevin can come back to Beaver County and find a home at our act. There may not be a part for you in every single production we do. I mean, we do 6 shows a year, including the radio show. So you never know what kind of parts we're going to cast for. But I often tell people, if you're at all interested in community theater or just being involved in something that's a little bit more theatrical and dramatic, why not audition for the radio show? It's kind of like dipping your big toe in just to see how the water is. You don't have to memorize your lines. There's no blocking. There's no costumes. It's entirely based on your voice. And I've had so much fun in every production I've been involved in. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
You've been listening to Beaver County's Our Act Theater Productions talk about their annual holiday radio show, our region's longest-running radio drama of its kind. Because of the pandemic, last year's live performance had to be canceled, and it's not clear whether there will be another live show in 21. But when the time comes to bring back live radio theater to Beaver County, we highly recommend attending the performance. Perhaps it will be in RX's new Seagrove Theater in Rochester, Pennsylvania. Meanwhile, please continue to support the fine work they are doing to keep the performing arts alive and well in Beaver County. Check out the show notes to this episode to find out more about our act. And while you're there, please consider generously supporting this podcast by making a donation or in-kind contribution to the Genesis Collective. Community support helps us share more stories of Beaver County artists and creators, such as photographers, filmmakers, musicians, actors, and even podcasters. We'd like to thank the generous support of the Arts Equity Reimagined Fund, the Program to Aid Citizen Enterprise Capacity Building Grant, and New Sun Rising for help making this podcast possible and funding the important work of the Genesis Collective. Before we go, I want to highlight a piece of public artwork in Beaver County and encourage you and your friends to go see it, enjoy it, talk about it, and share it on social media. As the Brazilian street artist Romero Brito says, art is too important not to share. Now, public art is meant for public display, often representing universal concepts and ideals and a community's shared interests and experiences. It reveals to us a defining spirit of a particular moment in our history, often shown through the ideals and beliefs of the time. This is called zeitgeist. Think of what war memorials represent: historical statues, protest art, such as murals of George Floyd, and artwork that reflects back to us hope and possibility. Now, there's a vibrantly painted mural at the intersection of Brighton and New York Avenues in Rochester, and it's called A Vital and Connected Rochester. I bet you've passed this 100 times and haven't noticed it much. But it's hard to miss, being 16 by 33 feet, painted broadside against the earth and red brick of the old Henderson printing building at the foot of Brighton Avenue. And it's been there since October of 2014. Now, the mural is the creation of artist Bernie Wilkie of Pittsburgh, but more than 100 local residents, including schoolchildren, were involved with painting the mural's background and putting scores of butterflies around the mural's border. The community also helped pay for the mural as well, and it wasn't cheap. A grant by the Pennsylvania Rural Arts Alliance got the project off the ground and onto the wall. And I mean literally. This is why public support and financing for the arts is so important. As for the mural itself, it depicts kayakers on the Ohio River, pedestrians passing a sidewalk cafe, walkers on a recreational trail. There are bridges, of course, and wildlife, fishes below the surface of the river. There's even a nod to Rochester's location, the hub of Beaver County, along with hints of its industrial heritage. Seeing it is well worth the trip. That does it for this episode of the Genesis Collective podcast. Stay tuned for more episodes featuring local Beaver County artists, more art talk, news and events about the Genesis Collective, and our spotlight on public art throughout the county and in your community. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the Genesis Collective podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and visit us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and our website, gcollective.org. I'm Kevin Farkas. See you next time.
You are listening
to a production
of the Genesis Collective,
supporting local artists and their work,
making art more accessible,
and putting art back into our communities. What I want you to know above all is that the Genesis Collective is about you. It's about our community. It's about something that is crucial to who you are as a human being.
It taps into a power that we don't realize we have.
Artists are making things. This is who they are and what they want to do. Please dream with us, get involved,